I think one of the dangers, if you are a comedian, which basically I am, if you start to take yourself too seriously and start to comment on social issues, your sense of humor suffers somewhere.
The line came up, thanks for the laughs, thanks for the tears, and all the class that you show. And I think that is the word in there, class, that really defines how Johnny approached that show. It was classy.
Do you get sensitive about the fact that people say he'll never take a serious controversy?
Well, I have an answer to that. I said, now, tell me the last time that Jack Benny, Red Skelton, any comedian, used his show to do serious issues. That's not what I'm there for. Can't they see that?
I'll make the claim flat out. Johnny Carson is the last television host who will ever hold 55 million Americans at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the math backs me up.
Somebody said years ago, if you want to be in the public eye as an entertainer, you have to take what comes with it.
On May 22nd of 1992, NBC's researchers clocked his farewell at a 31.9 rating and a 62% audience share, which they translated into roughly 55 million viewers. Fast forward to the second quarter of 2025, when the single biggest show in all of late night, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, drew an average of 2.42 million viewers across 41 first-run episodes. One Man's Goodbye outpulled the entire modern genre's champion by more than 20-1.
An audience member asked, "What made you a star?" Johnny replied, "I started out in a gaseous state and then I cooled."
And over the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you why that number can never be touched again. First, let me correct something you've almost certainly heard. The story goes that 80 million people watched Carson's last night, and I'll admit I used to repeat that figure myself before I checked it. NBC's own estimate landed at 55 million, while Britannica places it closer to 50.
People, for some reason, are interested in what you do in your personal life, so that's part and parcel of being in the public eye.
That 80 million number drifting around sites like the Vintage News carries no NBC sourcing behind it whatsoever. I'm flagging this right at the top because the Carson legend grew so enormous that people keep inflating it when the honest version stands tall enough on its own.
When you come out and do your monologues, which are really based on what you've read, do you go home and worry about things? Do you worry about this country? Are there things that really bug you that you can't say in the air?
John William Carson entered the world on October 23rd of 1925 in Corning, Iowa, and around the age of 8 his family settled in Norfolk, Nebraska. That Midwestern plainness became his single greatest professional asset, and I'd argue it carried him further than any lucky timing ever did.
I think one of the dangers, if you are a comedian, which basically I am, if you start to take yourself too seriously and start to comment on social issues, your sense of humor suffers somewhere.
Drew Carey put it bluntly, describing Carson as a man who seemed genuinely curious about everybody, more the Nebraska guy than anything else.
I've seen other people, whose names I won't mention, who do humor, and then somewhere along the line they start to want to make their views known. I try to do it humorously.
By 14, young Johnny worked the local circuit doing magic under the stage name The Great Carsoni. The Navy claimed him in 1943, where he served as a communications officer aboard the USS Pennsylvania.
And we've had some criticism on the show. Some critics over the years says, well, the show has no great sociological value. It's not controversial. It's not deep. The Tonight Show basically is to amuse people, to make them laugh.
And after the he wrote jokes for Red Skelton before landing the host chair on the ABC game show Who Do You Trust? From 1957 to 1962.
I love what I do. I still find it a challenge. So I'm not looking forward to the point, if I do this a few more years, I can quit and sit. Sit and do what? You know? So that's the high.
That set is where he crossed paths with Ed McMahon in 1958, the voice that would become inseparable from his own.
And she said, I know you're getting anxious to close. I mean, you're getting anxious to say goodbye. The line came up, thanks for the laughs, thanks for the tears, and all the class that you show. And I think that is the word in their class that really defines how Johnny approached that show. It was classy.
The hinge of the entire story swings on October 1st of 1962, the night Carson inherited The Tonight Show from Jack Paar, who had followed Steve Allen before him.
Is it true, John, that when you were first approached about doing Tonight on a regular basis, you weren't too crazy about the idea?
I turned it down.
His debut lineup featured Rudy Vallee, Tony Bennett, Mel Brooks, and Joan Crawford, with Groucho Marx personally walking him out.
Sure, there are times you have a lot of things on your mind, but strangely enough, once you get out there and it starts to roll and the audience reacts and you get the laughs, you set everything aside.
Do you?
And you do the show. You may have a terrible letdown after the show.
Here's a detail most retellings skip right over. Two reputable sources can't agree on how many episodes the man actually made, because the Television Academy's 2024 count says 6,714, while PBS American Masters says 4,531. A 2,183 episode gap separates them, and nobody fully reconciles it, though I lean toward the Television Academy figure since it counts the full run rather than first-run episodes alone.
I suppose the lowest point I had was was my first divorce, because my children were quite young, and that sense of failure overcomes you, that you have been less than you should have as a husband or a father, and those guilt feelings can be overwhelming.
This is where I split from the usual nostalgia piece. Most tributes paint Carson as a beloved entertainer and stop there, which sells the man short because he ranked among the shrewdest businessmen in the history of the medium.
We're doing this because you're a national treasure. That's what they tell me. You're a national treasure.
And you know what the dollar is worth nowadays.
And his contracts prove the point. Watch the salary climb, because the trajectory tells you everything. In 1962, he earned around $100,000 a year, which grew to $400,000 by 1967, crossed $1 million by 1970, and reached roughly $4 million a year by the mid-1970s, a sum that crowned him the highest-paid entertainer on Earth.
We sat down to find out what is Johnny Carson really like.
If I pulled out my old high school annual book and read some of the things, people might say, oh, he's conceited, he's aloof. Actually, that was more shy.
By the early 1990s, his deal reportedly hit $25 million a year. His own attorney, Henry Bushkin, laid out the 1980 negotiation in The Hollywood Reporter, revealing that Carson worked 1 hour a night, 3 nights a week, 37 weeks a year, with 15 weeks off, and walked away owning the show outright through Carson Productions.
But there is only one Johnny. Johnny is unique. A singular talent who for 30 years has always been reliably available at the same time and place to help ease our way.
The profit figures floor me every time I read them. By the mid-1970s, The Tonight Show generated an estimated $50 to $60 million a year for NBC, and the Kennedy Center's biography credits the program with roughly 17% of the entire network's profit by 1979. Sit with that for a second. One desk, 1 hour, 3 nights a week, hauling nearly a fifth of NBC's bottom line, which is something no single program manages for a broadcast network today.
Johnny Carson has been very generous to the university over the years, and a few of the students just wanted to come here tonight and say, thank you, Johnny.
When Colbert's Late Show was reportedly $40 million a year before CBS pulled the plug. On May 1st of 1972, Carson relocated the show from New York to Burbank, California, dragging the industry's center of gravity west right along with him.
How about you and Doc?
Not as close with Doc. Doc is very private, quiet, off. He's a brilliant musician. Has a strange, bizarre sense of humor when he gets on something that's very funny.
Doc Severinsen fronted the orchestra. McMahon bellowed, "Here's Johnny," every night, and Fred DeCordova ran the production.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny.
Here sits the engine of his power and the very thing that physically cannot be rebuilt. An estimated 23,000 guests passed through that studio, and a single invitation to the couch could transform an unknown into a headliner by morning.
Good friends. Ed and I, October the 13th, will have worked together 25 years. It's a unique relationship in the fact that Ed and I don't socialize greatly when we're off the show.
I went back through the roster of people Carson launched, and it reads like a hall of fame, including Bill Cosby, Woody Allen, David Letterman, Jerry Seinfeld, Jay Leno, Drew Carey, Ellen DeGeneres, and Steve Martin.
Do you get sensitive about the fact that people say he'll never take a serious controversy?
Well, I have an answer to that. I said, now, tell me the last time that Jack Benny, Red Skelton, Benny comedian, used his show to do serious issues. That's not what I'm there for. Can't they see that?
Now here's where I break from the crowd. Most people credit Carson's taste for all of it, but I credit the scarcity instead. With only 3 networks, no cable, no streaming, and no clips waiting on a phone, Exactly one room existed where the whole country could discover you at once, and Carson controlled the door.
Think that just because you have a Tonight Show that you must deal in serious issues. That's a danger. It's a real danger. Once you start that,
Strip away that scarcity and the king-making vanishes, no matter how sharp your judgment happens to be. The signature moments pile up quickly. On April 29th of 1965, the actor Ed Ames hurled a tomahawk into an unfortunate spot on a wooden cowboy cutout.
Let go of the tomahawk and zonk right in the very embarrassing region. And the audience absolutely collapsed and laughed for 2 or 3 minutes straight. It looked like something we had done electronically, and you couldn't have done it again if you'd have stood there for a century trying to do it.
And Carson's instant ad-lib triggered what many still call the longest sustained laugh in television history.
I didn't even know you were doing it.
4 years later, on December 17th of 1969, Tiny Tim married Miss Vicky live on the air and drew an estimated 45 million viewers, a show record that held until 1992. And in 1987, a woman named Myrtle Young brought in her collectible potato chips.
What's that?
Oh, this is a calf, but he doesn't have any eyes. But,
But that does look like the
the
head of a
shape
cat.
of a cow or a calf.
Right.
Which is when Carson deployed the sleight of hand from his magician days to fake a loud crunch while her back was turned.
This one, Johnny.
No.
No, I didn't.
A Bit TV guide later ranked among the funniest moments ever broadcast. That range, the quick wit beside the warmth beside the showmanship, all living in one chair, is what people mean when they insist nobody can replace him.
you start to get that self-important feeling that what you say has great import. And you know, strangely enough, you could use that show as a forum. You could sway people, and I don't think you should as an entertainer.
Here lies the contradiction I find most human about him. The most familiar face in America retreated into near-total seclusion the moment the cameras stopped, and people described him as the most private public man who ever lived.
He is. He's a little boy from the Midwest, very high moral standard, very private man, very shy, very, very shy, and very misunderstood by a lot of people.
Ed McMahon, who sat beside him across 3 decades, summed it up by saying, Carson was great with 10 million people and lousy with 10.
Even though he was that Midwestern kid, Peck's bad boy, oh gosh, Johnny kind of guy, even though that was true, he totally defined humor with class.
Carson copped to it himself, admitting that he could command an audience while staying aloof off stage because he simply wasn't comfortable around people.
Shy, defensive.
See, when I'm in front of an audience, it's a different thing.
Why?
I'm in control.
Dick Cavett, who knew him well, confessed that he felt sorry for Johnny since the man carried so much social discomfort. His private life pressed down on him with real weight. 4 marriages came and went, and he spoke candidly about his own failings, while raising 3 sons whose lives he didn't always navigate cleanly.
He's had a couple of marital problems along the way, as we all have, and when he carries those with him into the studio, you can feel it.
The year 1991 brought the loss of his son Ricky, a blow he marked in a quietly devastating on-air tribute, and DeCordova reportedly found himself banned from the studio floor after cutting that very tribute short.
My family is here tonight, my wife Alex, my 2 sons Chris and Corey. It would have been a perfect evening if their brother Rick could have been here with us, but I guess life does what it's supposed to do, and you accept it and go on.
Personal struggles trailed Carson for years. The way I read it, the loneliness was simply the price tag stapled to the genius, and you can't peel one off the other. 2 conflicts shaped the back half of the story. Joan Rivers came first.
There's certain things in this town, more than I think than any other city in America. And it's hip. Suddenly, you have to do it if you want to be in. Perrier water.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I have a friend that's so stupid, she drinks Perrier and soda. I said, what kind of a drink?
She had served as his permanent guest host since 1983, and that's when she took a competing show on Fox in 1986, reportedly a $10 million deal.
Walking at Tony Orlando, and my next, there are very few funny, really funny ladies around, thank God. And, and we're gonna keep it that way. It's another simple dress, Betty.
Oh, well, I would like to say you look lovely, but unfortunately...
By her own account, she phoned Johnny to break the news. He hung up the receiver, and he never spoke another word to her. NBC Late Night froze her out for nearly 3 decades, and she didn't step back onto that Tonight Show stage until Jimmy Fallon welcomed her on February 17th of 2014, a full 9 years after Carson had passed.
Welcome back to the network, Joan.
The succession battle came second. Carson reportedly wanted David Letterman to inherit the chair, but NBC handed it to Jay Leno, his permanent guest host since 1987. Letterman bolted for CBS, and the whole messy saga became Bill Carter's 1994 book, The Late Shift.
Just how pissed off are you?
Leno himself eventually conceded the truth of it, admitting that Johnny preferred Dave. My read is that NBC blew the call on taste while nailing it on ratings, and the fact that both things hold true at once is exactly why the era was already ending.
In its 60-year history, television has spawned other enormous stars, yet none of these greats meant as much to the daily lives of the people of this country for so long as Johnny Carson.
Retirement arrived as an announcement on May 25th of 1991. The penultimate show on May 21st of 1992 brought out Robin Williams and Bette Midler.
I heard that your favorite song was, Here's That Rainy Day.
Rainy day.
Maybe I should have saved those leftover dreams. Funny,
But here's that rainy day. Here's that rainy day they told me about. And I laughed at the thought that it might turn out this way.
Whose serenade left Carson visibly shaken, and the following night closed with a quiet clip retrospective before he disappeared from the chair for good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I love you too. We are around the studio so emotionally high from last night's show we have not come down yet. And I want to thank Robin Williams and Bette Midler for last night for giving us a next to closing show.
What Carson did next earns my deepest respect, and it's the exact spot where I reversed my own opinion of him. For a long stretch, I read his post-retirement silence as cold aloofness. Sitting with his reasoning changed my mind completely, because I now see it as discipline.
For 30 years, the nearly routine morning question was, did you see Johnny last night? For 30 years, Johnny was America's host.
He explained the choice cleanly, saying he let the work speak for itself, which is why he refused to come back or grant interviews. That vow held almost perfectly. His final television appearance arrived on May 13th of 1994, when he strolled onto Letterman's Late Show. Delivered the top 10 list, settled into Dave's chair to a roaring standing ovation, and walked off without uttering a single word. He kept faxing jokes to Letterman in private, a detail nobody learned until after he was gone. Johnny Carson passed on January 23rd of 2005 at the age of 79.
And on Sunday, phone rings. Johnny died.
Letterman's statement that day still rings true, calling it a sad day for the family and the country, declaring that everyone who came after were pretenders, swearing we would not see his likes again, and confessing that a night never passed without him asking himself what Johnny would have done.
And long before he retired on May 22nd, 1992, he had become the biggest star in the history of television. His final show was watched by 50 million Americans.
Carson then left roughly $156 million to his foundation, a sum revealed through a 2010 IRS filing that broke down to $35.2 million in cash and $121.2 million in securities. Money now funding children, education, health, and a film school at the University of Nebraska that carries his name.
This is our first show back since Johnny Carson passed away last week. News that I think stunned everybody.
Here's my closing stance, and talent has nothing to do with it. Carson held around 15 million viewers a night when only 3 networks competed for them, with no cable, no streaming, and no internet in the picture. The scarcity itself manufactured the monoculture, That scarcity is finished. The #1 late-night show now scrapes together 2.42 million viewers, and according to Late Nighters Nielsen data, Jimmy Kimmel Live, The Late Show, and Late Night with Seth Meyers have each shed somewhere between 70 and 80% of their viewership since 2015. On July 17th of 2025, CBS announced it would end The Late Show in May of 2026, and Paramount Global's George Cheeks framed the decision as purely a financial one against a challenging backdrop in late night. Bill Carter, who covered this world across decades, declared that Carson was already beyond duplication because the era of everyone watching the same thing at the same time, outside of sports and news, has vanished for good. The New York Times' Alexandra Jacobs called the 2024 biography Carson the Magnificent a memorial to the monoculture. For a sense of scale, the MASH finale pulled in roughly $106 million in 1983, and Friends gathered about $52 million in 2004. Yet nothing since 2010 has reproduced that kind of crowd outside the Super Bowl. Johnny Carson sat on a throne that no longer exists. The curtain opened onto a country that, for one single hour, chose to watch together, and we will never all crowd into that same room again. Good night, Johnny, and thank you.